Ladies and gentlemen, an 82-year-old woman, the wife of a decorated Lieutenant General, is in ICU under observation in Bengaluru after what the family has claimed was a fall at Delhi airport 2 days ago. We hope and trust that she will be well. It will be better with her. However, the family has made some very strong allegations raising concerns of apathy. The granddaughter took to social media alleging that they waited for 1 hour for a pre-booked wheelchair with Air India at the Delhi airport. However, they didn't get it. Instead, the grandmother started walking and landed up having a fall in front of the Air India premium economy counter. They have also alleged no medical help except ice packs by the flight crew and medical aid at airport. They have filed a complaint with the DGCA and Air India. In fact, they have said that there were ice packs given only inside the flight. Now, they have filed a complaint with the DGCA and Air India. Meanwhile, Air India has responded. The airline has said that due to an unprecedented peak in demand at that time, a wheelchair was not available within the 15 minutes the passengers' relatives waited. Passenger arrived later than the recommended time, and the family requested a wheelchair less than 90 minutes before departure. It dismissed claims that the passenger had to wait for an hour as baseless. The airline has also refuted allegations of medical apathy, saying officials of the Delhi airport, as well as the airport doctor on duty, immediately attended to her and administered first aid at whatever they could. In fact, Air India has said that the family declined further medical attention and chose to continue their journey. The airline staff assisted them through check-in, security, boarding, and ensured care during the flight. But there are serious questions, including about peak time traffic at airport. And if you remember, it was just in February last year that you had an 80-year-old gentleman, and if we could have those graphics up on the screen as well, an 80-year-old gentleman who collapsed at the airport. He had a heart attack. And the family has claimed that the 80-year-old gentleman, as well as his wife, both of them who were returning from abroad and had landed at Mumbai airport, which was almost a flight that was almost delayed by 2 hours. They were not given the wheelchair despite the wheelchair assistance being pre-booked for, because one, there was a lot of demand, and two, the flight had landed late. They were given only one wheelchair, the wife used it, and the husband eventually collapsed with a heart attack. I'm being joined at this point by Sarosh Damania, who's an aviation lawyer, Captain Sanjay Karve, who's an aviation expert, and Bejon Mishra, who's a consumer rights activist. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining us. It's a very unfortunate story. It's just so unfortunate that we have to discuss something like this in today's time. It's hugely unfortunate. It's heartbreaking at so many levels. Of course, we've put out what the family has claimed, and we've also put out what the airline has claimed. But let me, at this point, come straight to you at this point, Sarosh Damania. You are handling a case such as this. In fact, the case that I mentioned right now that happened in Mumbai, where an 80-year-old man had an heart attack, and he died. He and his wife both had booked for a wheelchair, and they were given only one. The wife took the wheelchair, and he walked. Sarosh Damania, you are handling this case. I mean, you're the family's lawyer in this particular case. What are your reactions when you hear of something like this?
This has become a regular affair regarding wheelchairs. The airlines, the airport authorities have to be serious about it. This is a on and off incident. These are only some of the incidents which come to light when something major happens. But every day at the airport, I am still at the Delhi airport or the other airports, when you're disembarking from a flight, you always see even two wheelchairs being pushed by one person. There is always shortage of wheelchair handlers. There is always shortage of wheelchairs. And in spite of DGCA coming out with mandated circulars, there is a law on that. There are car regulations which mandate that airlines provide for a wheelchair when it is pre-booked. In spite of all laws, regulations still being in place, the airlines simply are flaunting violations and nothing happens. DGCA is going to send them a show cause notice, maybe a financial small amount of penalty is going to be imposed, and the thing is going to go on. When is this going to end? Last time a person died, This time a person is in the ICU. Now, what are they waiting for? And why is this happening every time with Air India? This is something important? Why are they not focusing on? Why they don't care about maybe senior passengers? They think that they are maybe not that frequent travelers, or they should not be given that much care. So that is a very questionable fact, and the airlines should immediately look into it and taking a defense as such that we tried the passenger, blaming it on the passenger. I doubt they should do that at this time. They should have been more proactive in helping the passenger rather than playing the blame game that the passenger came late, passenger did this, passenger refused. You have to be there. You have to see the situation, understand the situation. It's a senior lady. You have to be considerate about it. So this is a very sad incident, and such incidents keep
Were
on
you
going
able to
on. So
have were you able to have a word with the family that you're representing in court?
regarding, of course,
Did
that
they speak
family
to you
which
after
I'm
this incident?
representing in the earlier case, which is there, they have filed a consumer case, and of course the case is ongoing. So of course we can't comment much on it until it's sub judice before the court. But they've also filed their claim. In that case, also DGC had imposed a 30 lakh penalty on the airline for in violation of car regulations regarding wheelchair. But the sad part is the DGC imposed a penalty, and they took away the 30 lakh rupees without even giving 1 rupee benefit to the family of the passenger. So the family of the passenger didn't get anything, and the DGCA pocketed the 30 lakh rupees penalty which they put on the airline. So it's a very sad affair. The people are made to run from pillar to post after this incident also. So they should, in this case also, the airline should have been proactive. They should have assisted them, should have provided some compensation. In spite of doing something like that, they have turned around and saying that you are responsible for it. You should have taken care of it. That is not the way to treat a passenger. The wheelchair, if it was pre-booked, should have been there.
Captain Sanjay Karve, if I can get you in here. I mean, we just heard Mr. Damania for that matter. Now, here's my very simple question. Air India, of course, has said that the passengers were responsible. There was a peak time at this point. The demand was high. They could not provide it in 15 minutes. The family has alleged it was 1 hour that they waited. The airline has said it was 15 minutes. And after that, eventually assistance was given. I mean, there are two different versions. We've put both the versions out. But is there a larger concern? Is there a bigger problem? There are elderly people at the airports traveling to and fro. Is there a shortage of wheelchairs? And why base it on the demand or the pre-booking demand? Why not just have surplus wheelchairs at the airport or with the airlines?
Yes, Sneha, at the outset, I hope Mrs. Pashricha recovers quickly and gets back home fast. Now, for an average passenger, there are certain things which you must remember. The airlines always say that you must report to the counter at least, it says at least 2 hours in advance. Now, this was a 5 p.m. flight. 5 p.m. is a peak time at Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru. We really don't know what time the passenger actually reported to the counter. The second is Delhi T3 terminal has a counter outside the gates for passengers with reduced mobility. Just outside departure gate 2 and 3, there is a counter specifically meant for these people so that they can contact them. The third issue is, it is the airport operator's job to provide a wheelchair from that particular place to the check-in counter. The airline's responsibility starts only after you have checked in. It is physically impossible for an airline to figure out where a passenger is landing, when he is landing, what is his parking slot, especially in a place like Delhi. You have a building which houses cars. How does the airline know? So it is the airport operator's responsibility to provide a wheelchair only once a passenger has checked in adequate time. You cannot come 60 minutes, 70 minutes, or 80 minutes in advance, especially when you have reduced mobility, and that too during peak time. Now, interestingly, one of the issues there they say is Indigo had a spare wheelchair available. What I'm amused, no one is questioning why that wheelchair from Indigo was not given to the passenger. I'm really amused about this fact. The passenger's granddaughter herself claims that there is a wheelchair available with Indigo, but they did not give it. Wouldn't Indigo be equally at fault? I'm not saying that Air India is totally faultless. Yes, we need to have more
Captain
wheelchairs
Sanjay Karve,
available.
the problem with that is I don't know the other side. And I want to know the other side. We've asked for the responses of this because we don't know if that Indigo's wheelchair had a booking. We don't know if that was in waiting. I mean, there is a very serious statement made by the family that there was a wheelchair available at the Indigo counter, and by all means, it should have been given if it was unused, if it was not booked for. But I don't know the other side. I don't know that whether there was any booking for that. My simple question is this: why have it piecemeal? Why have it cut to cut? If you have an X number of capacity, why not just have more? How difficult is it for an airline to go and just have some excess wheelchairs? How difficult is that? And it's not just about Air India. This seems to be a larger concern.
No, I agree with you. There is no denying the fact that if you have a flight which has got 180 passengers or 200 passengers, you need to cater at least 20 to 30% of that capacity with wheelchairs, and they should be readily made available inside the terminal. So once a passenger checks in, he or she has a wheelchair readily available for him or her. There's absolutely no denying the fact. When you're buying an aircraft which costs billions of dollars, I'm not talking of crores, billions of dollars, you can definitely spend money in buying 100 wheelchairs and positioning at these airports. There's absolutely, it's not an impossible task to be done. But purely blaming Air India,
Bijon Mishra, if I can get you in.
Because of Air India, I don't agree with it.
No, see, that's the family's version, and I understand there may be so many layers to it. But listen, I'm not getting into the micros of this. And as I said, we're really hoping that the grandmother would recover well and she will be out. And I'm sure everybody is hoping, praying, trusting for her while the medical fraternity does what they can at the hospital. But the question really is this, and that's why I'm saying it's not just about this one family. Look what happened in the case that Mr. Damania is representing. Look what happened in that case. There were demands for 15 wheelchairs that night. When the flight landed was supposed to land around 11 in the night. It landed around 2 in the morning. It was almost 2.5 hours delay from what I remember. And there were a demand for 15 wheelchairs in that flight. The provisions for that were just not there in that particular case. I mean, sorry, let me correct myself. 32 passengers needed wheelchairs at that flight. 15 were available.
Agree, Sneha. That's what I'm saying. The airline.
So I'm not talking about this case.
I'm talking about 25 to 30% of the capacity. The wheelchairs should be available. But playing the devil's advocate, we as passengers are also equally guilty. Have a cursory look at the airport. The people who are traveling on wheelchairs, 40% of the people are able-bodied people. They ask for a wheelchair because it gets them seamlessly through the customs, immigration, security. 40%. This is a hard fact. Please keep your eyes open on an airport and see. These are the same people who are walking in airports.
I think 40% is very. I think 40% is very high. Sir, for that statement, just a minute. For that statement, I don't have the fact on that. I think 40% is too high. Plus, I mean, this is a country where for every law you have somebody who misuses and abuses it. So for any system that will be there will be people who will abuse it. That doesn't mean the system is not better. Can I just get in Bijon Mishra at this point? Bijon Mishra, so what's happening now? I get it. Bijon Mishra, what's happening now? Whether it is the airline, whether it is the airport, the whole buck is, the argument is going to be between that. Because the family has said the airline is fault. I'm raising a larger question here. There's a bigger, deeper concern.
Sneha, can I come in now? See,
Mr. Bijon Mishra, my question is to you.
Point is, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Are you able to hear me? Am I audible, Sneha?
Yes. Okay. Yes, Mr. Bijon Mishra, go ahead. You're loud and clear.
Okay. So the first thing is there has to be a lot of transparency and accountability in the service delivery system. All airlines know in advance how many tickets have been booked and in what manner the tickets have been booked, at what time they need to travel, what time they're arriving. They have all the data with them. They can always do a forecasting in terms of the needs. It is just passing the buck. You have a look, you see a VIP traveling. In 15 minutes notice, he gets everything what he wants. He gets a wheelchair, he gets a buggy, he gets everything what you want. We have to get rid of this VIP culture now. We have to bring in a transparency in the service delivery system. We have to make the process accountable. You know, very well said by our panel member. What happened to that money which the government pocketed, which should have gone to the consumer? You see, they put a fine, hefty fine on the airline, and the airline gives it smilingly because they know that they will get some subsidy again from the government out of that money which they're giving to the government. You see, the point is, none of the airlines are scared of the regulator. They're not scared of the law. They don't find it undermining in terms of, you know, if they are being taken for litigation. They want people to go for litigation because they know that the passengers cannot afford it. In our country, litigation is highly expensive, cumbersome, and also time-taking. So every passenger knows that if the regulator doesn't work, we have to live with it. We only have to debate in public forums like this TV channels. We can only do that. That's our capacity in our country. We can't do beyond that. And of course, some of the noble-minded lawyers, they take up public interest litigation on behalf of the citizens, and we get certain court orders, but they are also not implemented. I've seen many court orders not getting implemented by the airlines.
Okay.
Now, what happens to that? Who takes it?
Captain.
So DGCA and
Captain
the Ministry of
Karve,
Aviation
do you want to respond to this?
That is right. Today, the major airlines really don't worry about the DGCA. The regulator has lost its teeth. Like Mr. Damania said, there are rules and regulations in place. It's not that rules and regulations are not in place, but they are hardly ever implemented. The reasons are best known to all of us. The airlines have become too big for the regulator to tinker with. And the airlines have a standard excuse. Okay, look, peak traffic, peak timing, we have to be on-time performance, and all these factors, well, it is really not possible or practical. Of course, that does not take away the fact that a wheelchair for a passenger who has already requested has to get that wheelchair, especially once he or she has requested in a booking, like this lady had put in a booking. You can see it, wheelchair requested. But that request starts from the check-in counter. It does not start from the time she disembarks from the vehicle. That is the airport operator's responsibility. It is not the airline's responsibility. So the airport operator also needs to get hauled up as to what are the services they are providing. In a ticket, there are charges. In a passenger service facilitation, PSF, we as a common passenger, we need to know how is that PSF being utilized and for what purpose.
Okay, Mr. Damania, if I can get you in at this point. Okay, Mr. Bejan, I think you want to make a point. Go ahead, Mr. Bejan.
You know, the point which I'm making is, how do you expect an ordinary passenger to know whom to approach? We pay the full money in the ticket. There are 20 agencies who take money from us, whether it is tax, whether it is, you know, ground fee, whether it is airport handling fee, whether it's the airfare, whether it's the taxes. We pay everything in full in advance. We don't pay in installments, we pay in advance. We want service for the payment which we have made. So the system has to become transparent and accountable. We can't have excuses. Why are we giving excuses? For heaven's sake, give it up. You have to make those heads roll, those officers who are drawing fat salaries, amenities, and at our expense, passengers' expense, they need to be taken to task. They have never been taken to task. I've never seen anybody losing his job. For this wheelchair, I've never seen anybody losing a job. Why has he not lost his job? That airline authority. I'm not interested to know who's supposed to give me from where. If I ride from my car or if I come by a bus, if I need a wheelchair, I need a wheelchair. How the hell you deny me that facility for which I have paid in advance?
I can see the anger. I can hear the anger in what you are saying, Mr. Bejan Mishra. I can completely hear. I think many people will resonate with that. But Mr. Sarosh Damania, I'm left with just about less than 2 minutes. Let me just come to you for the last word on this. You're also an aviation lawyer. Would you put things in perspective for us? Are things so bad here? Or when you look at it internationally, is this how things function?
Internationally, it is a very well organized affair. If you have booked a wheelchair, the wheelchair is going to remain available. Here also, the airline knew in advance the wheelchair should have been available. Even if the passenger came late, the wheelchair should have been there at the place, in place, waiting for the passenger to arrive. Here, the question is, in our country, what is the problem is after the passenger arrives, they go hunting for a wheelchair. Then once the wheelchair comes in, so there is always a delay. Why do you want passengers to come 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours early? The check-in counter closes 60 minutes prior to departure. Now, for an elderly passenger, airline should be proactive. They should see that they spend the least amount of time coming at the airport. They should be given priority facilities. Now, one point being that the airport operator being responsible or airline being responsible, the car regulations are very clear. Airport operator has the responsibility, but once a passenger is booked with the airline is supposed to see that the facility is provided to the passenger. So in the end, you can't put blames that from the outside the airport till the check-in counter. Sometimes you have to walk a lot to reach the check-in counter. You can't expect a 80-year-old, 90-year-old person to walk from the vehicle to the counter, of course. And about parking spaces for disabled passengers, there are fixed places to park the cars, or the drop-off area is fixed. So it is not that the wheelchair guy has to go hunting for the passenger. There is a designated drop-off area for handicapped passengers or wheelchair passengers. So I don't know. So they can have wheelchairs stationed over there. There is a counter for it outside the airport. But if there was a counter, why was there no wheelchair? Now we are hearing that there was an Indigo wheelchair. So if Indigo had placed a wheelchair for some of their passengers, why had Air India not done the same for their passenger? So this is lack of accountability. This is lack of responsibility towards senior citizens. They being not many frequent senior citizen travelers, or they are neglecting this part. But our airline regulator, the DGCA, has to step in. There are laws in place. The law should be implemented strictly. Only imposing fines and the passengers being deprived of their rights is a very unfortunate circumstances what we are seeing in our country.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are totally out of time, but our attempt is just one, to bring to the fore something that relates to each one of us. Each one of us has people who require a wheelchair in our families, who would be flying at some point of time. And what's happened to this 82-year-old grandmother is so unfortunate and completely avoidable. We just hope good health for her and a fast recovery for her. But this is a very, very important reminder for where our aviation sector is and how we really look at issues that could be just so basic and generic and would require very little extra thought, but would make a world of difference. And I think Indians deserve that. Sarosh Damania, thank you very much for joining us. Captain Sanjay Karve, thank you very much for your perspective. And Bejon Mishra, thank you very much for your time. It's time for a very short break.